Good morning, Amanda.
Morning, Elaine.
How's it going today?
It's going okay.
It's Friday, for whatever that means.
It's Friday for whatever that means. Time is
Well,
relative, right?
time is very relative.
Also doesn't mean anything right now.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to 10 Minutes with 52 Limited. My name is Elaine Shea. I'm the Community Engagement Manager. Today, we have the amazing and wonderful senior technical recruiter, Amanda Bolint, talking about technical resumes, which is a little bit more, I think, specific to, tech roles, but I think it's just as important to show employers and hiring managers all of the great things that you've done. And kind of, I think it'll be great to have a recruiter's perspective on how that resume should look and what are some important things to include to get the hiring manager's interest and or get the job. So thank you so much, Amanda, for joining us today and giving us your tips and tricks. We're going to hold questions to the end. So if you have any great questions or if she brings anything up, please wait till the end, but we'll definitely address them today. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks for the introduction, Elaine. I will dive right into it. I have been looking at resumes for nearly the past 10 years and evaluating, mostly technical resumes in all of that time. I'm going to just kind of do a top to bottom sort of approach to this. And it's kind of interesting. There's no real right or wrong way to do a resume, but there are ways to organize your resume to ensure the important stuff kind of floats to the top, gets noticed first, and encourages the reader to read on. And that's just a good practice for anybody. You don't have to be a technical person for that to apply. A good technical resume should include your GitHub or personal portfolio site. So if you're a front-end developer, you might have something that has, a little bit more pizzazz than, somebody that's a back-end developer or data engineer. So keep in mind, your audience is going to be most interested in what is applicable to the job that you're essentially applying for. One thing that I've noticed a lot lately is that people are neglecting to write a summary or intention statement at the top of your resume. And right underneath your contact information, you should have a pitch. We've had Gigi Rosenberg talk here before as well, and think of it as your physical elevator, your elevator pitch on paper. You want it to say something interesting about yourself, what you do, and what you want to do. So keep that all in mind. Great little homework assignment if you don't have a summary is to write 3 to 4 sentences about your job, what you want to do, and what makes you love what you do. Skill section. So right underneath your summary, you should include a skill section. That can include your education, certifications, any sort of training elements. But also this section is important if you're applying to really large organizations such as Google, Intel, Nike. A lot of those companies have keyword filters. So in this skill section should be fairly fluid. You'll want to eliminate skills that aren't relevant to positions as you're applying, but also make sure that you are floating those skills from the content of the rest of your resume to the top when they're relevant for the position that you're applying for. That'll help a little bit with that algorithm that screens out, candidates that don't hit keywords. So just something to think about. I do speak to a lot of junior developers, people coming out of code school or college and really unsure how to craft a resume because they don't have, concrete professional experience. I think the best way to combat that, and I've seen this done successfully a few times, is to include your school projects that you're really proud of or that are relevant to the position, again, that you're applying for, and be able to explain your contribution to the project. I know a lot of these are group projects, kind of built out like little product teams. So be able to talk about your contribution, send or include any links or, screenshots, information, in attachments. Just be able to show what you've done and what you've learned. I think that's a really important thing when you're just starting out. For those more senior than that, I would say don't limit yourself to one page in technical resumes. I think that's an old perception that needs to be squashed, at least in this field. If you have more than 5 years of experience, definitely don't limit yourself to one page, but keep it under 4. And another thing to remember is that only include the last 10 years of your professional relevant experience. You want to prevent as much bias as possible in any social media presentation like your LinkedIn, as well as your resume. So only including the last 10 years, we'll make sure that you're still relevant to the position, but also will prevent any sort of ageism or bias. Same thing with removing dates from your education if it's older than about 20 years. Last little reminder is that keep your designs clean and non-distracting, and colors that are easy for the eyes if you are going to choose colors. I think the hardest ones to look at are ones with a lot of hot pink or really light greens or yellows and reds. Those are just really abrasive, and you want people to take your resume as seriously as possible. Another thing to make sure to remove are any pictures of yourself. A resume should not include that, especially if a company is really trying to make sure that they have equitable hiring practices. I know that we have a few more minutes, so I wanted to open it up to Q&A and see if there are any questions that we can answer.
There is a question. Erin wants to know, what is the best way to know the keywords besides reading the job description?
I mean, that's really it. I think in a lot of, especially technical job descriptions, you'll see like a required skills section. So you'll want to pick out things like, for example, if they're looking for a Ruby developer, you want to be able to show that you've worked with Ruby or any other associated languages and platforms. So that's what you'll float to your skills section, but it should also be in the content of your positions or past projects as well. So make sure that if you have the skills that are listed on a job description, that they're in your resume. And that'll be the best way to combat any sort of keyword algorithms.
And for those of you who are struggling to write any type of summary, the Gigi Rosenberg video that Amanda referred to earlier can be found on our YouTube site. So some great tips and tricks on how to write an elevator speech or an elevator pitch virtually as well as in real life. And then I think that will translate really well to writing a summary. So great call out.
Totally.
I have a question. So you said not beyond 10 years, 4 pages is the max. What about like formatting? A lot of resumes traditionally have the company, your position, your date, and then some bullet points. Is there too many bullet points? Do the bullet points, should they be full sentences? I know that this isn't specific to technical resumes, but in a lot of instances, the bullets are used as a great listing. Is there a way to make that more concise and more digestible for the hiring manager, for the recruiter?
Absolutely. And that's a good point. I probably should have elaborated on that more, but some of that stuff is a little bit more arbitrary, I think, and based on personal preferences. I personally think that your content should be clean and brass tacks. Your summary is the area to get creative and talk about how driven and motivated and amazing you are, which you should definitely do. But when you get down to the summaries of each position that you've worked on, keep it simple sentences. Simple, digestible sentences. You don't want run-on sentences. You don't want to just put a string of technologies with commas. Make a small explanation of what you've done with each thing. And I think that's really the best way to make sure that you're not rambling essentially in your resume, but also making it readable. A lot of people scan resumes instead of actually reading them line for line. So if it's not in full sentences, that's fine. It might actually be in your benefit. And another thing to mention is use sans serif fonts. For some reason, it's easier to read. People can glance at it a lot faster. Just also something to think about, general good resume practice.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Cindy is wondering, I'm marketing myself as having 15 years of experience, so I want to include more than the last 15 years of experience. Thoughts? I have job experience over the last 20 years, but with an 11-year break when I was a stay-at-home parent.
Ooh, I think that's a really good question. So, especially if you're marketing yourself for having 15 years of experience, I think that's fine. And in some industries and companies, that's going to be more appropriate than others. I think that, the reason I tell people to stay, around 10 years is you want to avoid any sort of irrelevant experience or ageism. But for example, if you're like an accountant or a CFO or a director, you will probably want to show a lot more experience than that. But I wouldn't really go past 20 years, if that makes sense.
Cindy has a follow-up question, which is, should we have a software proficiency section for applications relevant to our role, like user research and productivity tools like Office, G Suite, and Microsoft Office, of course?
Exactly. So that'll be in the skills section on the top. So that'll include your education, any sort of information about your skills. And that's really where the area that can be more fluid position to position that you apply for. So if Microsoft Office is taking up too much real estate on your resume, you can also take that off because pretty much everyone can use that. And then, soft skills are a good thing to put in that skill section as well. But if, for example, a company is requiring experience with Salesforce and you have it, but you haven't put it in the content of your resume, put it up in that skills section in some bulleted list. I've seen columns, I've seen all sorts of things. I've seen it broken up by, browsers, social media platforms, languages, you name it. So that's also kind of, open to be interpreted. But that's where you'll want to plop all of those software proficiencies.
Awesome.
I like the word plop.
And if people have additional questions or specific questions to their background, to their expertise, is there a way for people to reach you best? LinkedIn, would that be your preference?
Absolutely. I'm super happy to chat with people on LinkedIn. And, also reach out to, words this morning are hard, through the 52 Limited website. We monitor the queue. I'd be super happy to talk to folks that are interested in, learning more about how to write a good resume.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda, for talking to us about technical resumes. And thanks to everyone who joined us this morning with 10 Minutes with 52. Words. It must be. Words. Anyways, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great day. Stay safe. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Amanda.
Bye.